Hello there everyone and welcome to another episode of the Long Live Rock and Roll podcast. As usual to my right is Felipe Amarim. How's it going, man?
All good, man, and you?
Yeah, very, very well.
Hello everyone.
We're still in Soho. We've done a bunch of episodes today for you. As we've said before, we're in Felipe's flat. This is the third episode we've done in your flat, so we don't need to tell people again that you live above the pub that you play in 4 times a week.
We just did
but we'll do it again,
we just did it,
anyway,
I'm living the dream.
He is,
and
paying the rent. We will get straight to it. We are doing today what can only be described as one of the most important albums in music history, and that is Rubber Souled by the Beatles.
Oh, the Beatles.
We actually, when we were chatting,
those
guys, the Fab Four, when we were chatting a few weeks ago about what we're going to do, we actually said we chose another Beatles album that comes later, but I actually thought that the Beatles are probably the band that album episodes we're going to do most of. Yeah. And I think because of what they've done for music and how you can literally hear music progress as their albums go on, it would make sense to do it chronologically. So we're going to do more Beatles albums, but we're starting here. This will be the first one, and from now on it will happen chronologically.
And we're not starting from the,
We're not doing all of them.
We're not starting from the very early stuff.
No. Just the ones that matter.
Not experimental stuff.
The ones that matter.
We're not talking about dance music.
No, exactly. We'll start the episode as usual with Felipe presenting his drink.
The drink of the day is Nespresso again. So today's show is brought to you by Nespresso.
Unofficially, but
it keeps me awake on Saturday mornings after playing late gigs. So yeah, there you go. That's Nespresso for you. Let's go.
Anyway, right, so the album, as usual, the little Laz's info, called Rubber Soul by the Beatles, released in December of 1965, recorded in 1 month between the 12th of October and the 11th of November in 1965, EMI London Studios. 34 minutes long.
Which is Abbey Road, right?
Is it? EMI is Abbey Road?
Yes, EMI London Studios is Abbey Road. It wasn't called Abbey
Road
until the album Abbey Road was released.
Is that real? Is that a fact? You're telling me that?
Yeah. So it was called EMI Studios.
No, because Pink Floyd were recording at Abbey Road at the same time the Beatles were recording Sgt. Pepper.
But it was called EMI Studios. We just
Are
call
you
it
serious?
Abbey Road now.
Oh my god!
Unless they refer to another EMI Studios, but as far as I know,
thank
EMI
you, man, because I did not know that. That's incredible.
But nowadays, we just like every time we're referring to the studios. Oh yeah, that was recorded in Abbey Road Studios. But it wasn't called Abbey Road Studios until the album, because the album was so iconic that everyone started referring to the studio as Abbey Road Studios. The album never actually, I don't think it mentions Abbey Road Studios. It recorded at EMI London.
Incredible.
But the album has the Abbey Road,
Amazing. The album clocks in at 35 minutes long. It's not long at all, and it was produced by their long-term producer, George Martin.
Songs are all short, all of them.
They're all about 2.5 minutes long, aren't they? There's nothing that goes over 3 minutes, I'm sure of it. Now, this is an interesting album because for the first time, our Fab Four Beatles are in a position where they had no film commitments, no touring schedule, no radio or TV appearances in the diary. They had complete freedom over their time needed to write and record this album, which I'm going to come back to at the end because it's very important. But that tells us something, that the album that a lot of people consider the most important that's arguable, in their back catalogue, is the one where they found themselves without anything else in their way.
Also, with nothing else to prove in a certain way.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Still when they're starting to experiment, but after being the best-selling band in the world for a few albums, right? You've got loads of #1 hits already.
Yeah.
So you don't need to prove anything. You can try something slightly different without being without destroying your career. Really, you can still do something. If the album was a failure, they would still be the Beatles.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing about this is that in August of that year, 1965, they did their US tour. And they had gone over and they had heard and listened to a shitload of Motown and soul music. And that is hugely reflected in the music of this album. So that's because all they'd done before was record in England, English pop music, the way that English people wanted it. But they went over and took inspiration from what they heard.
Probably that last tour, wasn't it? Maybe they toured.
I think you're right. I don't think they've toured again. Maybe one tour in between Rubber Soul and Revolver.
I'm pretty sure they didn't tour from 66 onwards.
That's definite, but was this their last US tour? Could be. We don't know.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind when we're discussing these songs. In terms of the production, John Lennon said that Rubber Soul was the first time that the Beatles actually started making demands about the mix and about the production styles.
So that's a point that most musicians find themselves after a while. After you focus on learning how to play your instrument, learning how to write songs, eventually you find yourself in a position where you start to think about how are my songs going to be mixed.
Good point.
And produced, and
it matters. It matters, doesn't it? Because
it does.
You transcend from I wrote a song that turned out well to I can write songs. Now I want them to be heard in the correct way.
I believe I might be wrong about this, but I believe George Harrison and John Lennon were really, really interested in that part of the band. I think Paul.
They all were. Ringo less so,
yeah.
and Paul a little less so. But the whole band were attending the mixing sessions, and it actually the people working around them said that for the first time, the brotherhood, the camaraderie was absent because it kind of got a little professional.
Yeah.
People were saying we need to, fuck feelings. We're here to make a good album, and it was the first signs of the artistic conflict between McCartney and Lennon. They started appearing during this songwriting and mixing.
And you know one thing that I really believe is conflict is a big part of rock and roll.
Yeah.
And it is.
Well, it's how some of the best stuff's executed, isn't it?
Exactly. If there's no conflict, if you just agree with everything, and so you're not actually challenging yourself and not challenging your bandmates.
Yeah.
And I think they started to do that. I think the camaraderie at during the first albums is more evident because they were like, we're a bunch of really young kids making a lot of money.
Yeah.
All the girls want to be with us. We're traveling the world, and we're the most famous faces in the world, and we're just having fun together. Anything we write is going to be a hit. And at a certain point, they start thinking, what if we start writing more intelligent stuff?
Yeah.
And then you start to have arguments. What do you think is better than this? Because if we were just repeating the formula, that would be a lot easier for the friendship.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Two other things I want to address before we start sort of getting a bit into the album and the songs. Part one is that it's important to know, I think, that the Beatles were taking a lot of drugs at this point. They were smoking a lot of weed and they were taking quite a bit of LSD. Now, Paul McCartney abstained from taking this LSD, which led to the conflict with him and Lennon, because John Lennon and George Harrison grew very close because of their love for LSD, and Ringo Starr got involved as well, but Paul was the only one not taking it. So that, just to further let you guys know that there was a divide emerging between Paul and John because of their artistic-ness, and also because they weren't doing the same hobbies as each other. John wanted to take drugs, Paul didn't. So, just so you know.
That's interesting.
I don't think it's made the album by any means worse. It's just something interesting to know, isn't it? That as you said, conflict can be a good thing.
Yeah.
Good rock and roll should hurt.
Yeah, good rock should change your life.
Not necessarily for the better. The second thing I wanted to talk about, what was the second? Now, the reason why I started this show off by saying it was one of the most important albums in music history was because for the first time anywhere, this album, I'm just going to think about how to say it. For the first time anywhere, the album as a whole mattered more than the single. So what would happen previously is, let's just go with the Beatles. They would release a single, Help.
Yes. Yeah.
And the single is what would bring in the money. It's what would sell the most. It's what they would perform on their TV shows and their radio appearances. And this is the way it was for artists and musicians everywhere around the world. But for this time, or for this album, I should say, again, this is why I mentioned at the start that they had no commitments and they had nothing to be ready for. They weren't due to give someone a single at the end of that recording session. They just knew they had to record an album. And so for the first time in the world, the album, track 1 to 14, in this case, mattered more than, track 6, because we'll put it out as a single.
Is the album.
The whole journey mattered more, and this changed music. Straight after this album was released, Brian Wilson from the Beach Boys, I've got the quote here, he said, I can't find it at the moment. Brian Wilson said, the first album I had ever listened to where every song was a gas, and I assume a gas means a good thing, not a fart, not a bad fart. And he actually said he planned to surpass Rubber Soul by writing Pet Sounds.
Wow.
By the Beach Boys, which we know is an incredible album. But as you just
But
heard,
again, that's the Beatles being a big influence on him.
Every song was brilliant. That's what Brian Wilson said. And he strove to make one of the next best complete albums of the 60s, Pet Sounds by Beach Boys. And he openly said, because of Rubber Soul, I went and I wrote every song to be good. Not just 2 that we could release as singles, every damn song.
Yeah.
And that is why this album is so important, is it just changed everyone's opinion on what an album meant and what it could be.
What an album could be, I like that.
Yeah,
well, an album doesn't have to be just fillers for the singles, right? Because that's what albums were at the time. Some people would buy the whole thing, but most people were buying the singles and listening to the singles, and those songs would be played on radio and TV, and that's what it is. If you have a hit, you don't necessarily need to write a whole piece of art, which is an album, like a proper, well-crafted piece of art, which is an album. You just write a good single, and everyone sings along to it, and that's it. You make money, and that's what it is. But the Beatles were interested in leaving something much bigger than that.
Yeah,
you know, as
14 singles. You know, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
14 songs good enough to be singles.
There's something for me about Rubber Soul, which is they are going to more experimental territory. They're adding stuff, getting a bit psychedelic at some points, but the songs still have that formula of like strong choruses, sometimes starting from the chorus, and short, straight to the point.
Yeah,
and
no, you're right with that.
Solid groove.
Let's start musically, because I've done a lot of research into this album, because with an album this important, it's not just me and you who think it's important. The world knows it's important. There's loads of articles and writings about it, and I've done a shitload of research. So I want to talk about the lyrics afterwards. Talk to us musically. What about your favourite songs? What your favourite aspects of the music of your favourite songs are?
Yeah, I think there's an interesting point about the guitar playing in the album was really good, really solid. The acoustic, the electric. I think the vocal harmonies were at a really high level at that point.
Yeah.
They have sung together live and recorded vocals together. And it feels to me in that album that every single musician in the band is at the same level of importance. Also, when you listen to Sgt. Pepper's, it's Paul McCartney's solo album, really, with some collaboration from the Beatles. Whilst this is a Beatles album. And What Goes On is written by Ringo, isn't it?
No, Lennon.
Okay, but
let me tell you something quick because it's funny.
Yeah.
It's Ringo's first songwriting credit, but when asked about it, he said, "Ringo, what did you contribute?" About 5 words.
Still part of it.
So
anyway. That is like, for instance, that song is a really fast shuffle. The drumming is great.
It's a country song.
It's a country song. Not very easy harmonies to sing.
No, really. It's fantastic. There's 7-part harmonies there, I think, or it could be another song. But yeah, they worked hard on it. That's a hard song.
It's a really hard song to sing. It's really clever. The lyrics are simple, you know, but it's intentional. They knew what they were doing. So they do go through like different genres and stuff. Norwegian Wood. It's
the sitar.
You got the sitar, so they explore new instruments. And it's unlike any other Beatles songs to that point. And I think, then you're talking about Motown influences. If you listen to Drive My Car, it's funky, it's groovy. And that song for me is bass and drums, essentially. More than the lyrics, more than the riff.
Isn't that the bass, B-A-S-E, of Motown?
Yeah.
The bass and drums, you know.
Yes,
with Motown, for anyone who's not familiar with any Motown music, Motown is largely based around the drums and the bass guitar. The guitar, piano, horns, strings, they'd be little afterthoughts, wouldn't they? They'd be little embellishments, little melodies and counter melodies that you put on top of it. The bass, B-A-S-E, of Motown music was in the rhythm section.
Yeah.
And this is reflected here in several songs. Drive My Car, What's the other one? The Word. I feel like that one.
Yeah.
I'm Looking Through You as well. I feel that's kind of Motown-y. Wait. You know. So I think, and this is why I mentioned the American tour.
I think you have that, and you have George Martin's influence in terms of the classical music side of it.
Yeah.
Regarding drumming, I'm a big fan of drummers because I'm one of them. In My Life, it's such a beautiful piece of music altogether. Again, talking about the instruments and the stuff, you have some classical elements in there, and the drumming is the first time I've heard in pop music linear drumming. What's linear drumming? When you don't hit two things at the same time. Drummers are constantly playing kick, hi-hat, and snare, like the three main pieces of the kit. Okay. And sometimes you would have one thing played separately, but most of the time playing kick and hi-hat or snare, hi-hat or kick and snare, whatever. He plays one thing at the time. The groove is built out of one piece at a time. Just a kick, just hi-hat, just snare. And apparently that's something that came from George Martin. He said to Ringo, why don't you think as a percussionist in an orchestra? You just play a cymbal here. You just play...
that's really interesting.
It's like one instrument at a time.
It's not something I noticed.
And
maybe it's something only drummers would notice.
And that it was really, really important. That's for the whole verse, and then the chorus changes into something new. He would start the chorus by just playing the bell of the right cymbal, nothing more. So there's a kind of it's. At some points, again, we talk about how space is important in music, emptiness, and you have loads of that in My Life, and you can clearly hear how the instruments are serving the lyrics.
Yeah,
right?
Again, that's a great point.
In My Life, it's a beautiful ballad about love in it, and it's not like everyone was singing about a boy loves a girl. In My Life is about your friends.
Boy loves his hometown as well.
Exactly. Yeah. People, places, is love for people, place, and love for life. It's like, how can you at such a young age be reflecting on the past like that? Really cool stuff. And and the instruments are there to back that feeling. Yeah. And they do it really well.
There's huge Motown influences of this. There's directly been cited as The Miracles, You Really Got a Hold on Me, and The Tracks of My Tears.
Which they used to play, Really Got a Hold on Me. The Beatles used to play, they recorded it.
Oh, brilliant. That's really cool.
Beautiful song. One of my favorites.
We did mention the sitar earlier, and I think it's important with this album. It's where they really started branching out in terms of a multitude of genres and cultures, really, because in Norwegian wood we had sitar because George Harrison went to India in... was it 64? And he became fascinated with the Indian music and he learned sitar. So that's the reason for the sitar there. In My Life, that middle 8 section with that piano, that is a piano recorded on a... I did have it written down. He recorded, this is all George Martin's doing as well. He recorded the piano at half speed, recorded it on a tape, and then played it back at full speed.
That's why
and that's why you get that weird kind of keyboard sound. This is just more evidence of the Beatles.
And that's very George Martin as well,
classically. So let's split the two. This is evidence of George Martin's influence on innovating the Beatles' music stylistically and production-wise, doing things and taking ideas, recording something at half speed and playing it back at full speed so that we get a different sound. Very important. And then,
so again, classical music influence, studio experiments, and it's a pop song.
Yeah, exactly.
And the lyrics are not that obvious as well. It's interesting. Isn't it?
There's a song. One of them, and stupidly I haven't written it down, but there's a Greek... I'm half Greek, by the way, and there's an instrument we have in Greece called a bouzouki, which is like a guitar, but it's more pingy.
Oh, right.
And one of the songs... Oh, Girl.
It does feature the instrument.
Girl.
Oh, what a song.
No, it's not a bouzouki playing, but George Harrison is playing it in a bouzouki style.
Oh, right.
So and I just need to mention this now because of the context. Michelle, a French song with French lyrics. So we've covered India, Greece, and France. Is there any more evidence that the Beatles have just come off of a world tour?
Yeah, interesting.
And America, sorry, the soul and Motown to add to that.
And they were trying to make that evident. You know, they were like, I want to put French words into a song. I want to put a sitar into a song. That could have been a disaster.
Yeah.
When you're just trying really hard to mix too many different stuff, it might just sound like a bunch of stuff together. But the composition, again, the songwriting was so good.
So does this attest to... Well, I'm not asking you, I'm agreeing and telling you that this just shows how good they were at songwriting.
Oh, yeah.
Knowing where to put different stuff in, knowing how much of it to put it in, and knowing when to stop.
And how good they were as a team.
Yeah.
They knew how it works, even if the camaraderie wasn't there anymore, even if they were not like the closest friends, even if they were starting to have their own conflicts, they were still a good team.
Yeah.
And you know, under a strictly professional point of view. You know, you've got to put a good album together. You need to be able to listen to your bandmates. You need to be able to collaborate, to groove with them, to write with them. And I think they were really, really good at that. And interesting thing is, sometimes you have the songs credited to the Beatles separately, but their solo careers, in my opinion, are not half as good as the Beatles. I love Wings and Paul McCartney's solo stuff. I love John Lennon's
albums are incredible.
I love Imagine. I love everything he's done. And I think Ringo is great with his country music stuff.
But it doesn't touch.
All Things Must Pass is a great album by George Harrison. But why were they so good together? Even though the credit sometimes, that's Lennon McCartney. Yeah, but you have Ringo and George in the room with you. Yeah. That does change how you feel, changes the vibe.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it makes you write in a different way. So I think you can't replace that band vibe by anything else, you know.
I agree with you. And just, again, with the more... going with these different approaches to how instruments sound. It's interesting on Think For Yourself. Paul McCartney has recorded an aggressive fuzz bass line over it. And when you find out what the lyrics mean, it actually makes quite a lot of sense. That he's recorded, so he's got the normal bass part and then he's gone over
another bass
with a fuzz bass, a heavy aggressive fuzz bass, which I think is really interesting. So yeah, I think that quite nicely covers the musical side of it. Is there anything specific any song you wanted to say something specific about musically?
Do you know what? Let me look at
just whilst you say that, I just want to talk about. It's just about that Motown stuff, really, and it's just that. I'm looking through you. There's the R&B style, that loud middle style. You know the. I'm looking through you, but all the same. It reminds me of Everybody Needs Somebody. Yeah. Everybody, just like a preacher, an R&B song.
There's loads of percussion as well, like tambourines kind of emphasizing the snare sound.
Yeah,
that is a really, really classic Motown stuff. The Beatles used to do that before; they were doing that, but I think it's way more present in this album, like percussion as a enhancement to the backbeat.
Rather than a drum beat, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you got this snare there, but you got tambourines loudly played there.
The song You Won't See Me, Paul McCartney has openly cited James Jamerson. So remember when I was talking about the Motown, there is a famous Motown bass player called James Jamerson, who is, if you've heard a Motown song, there's a 95% chance he's playing bass on it. He was a monster. And he has cited James Jamerson as his feel for the song. The verses in You Won't See Me use the same chord progression as It's the Same Old Song by the Four Tops.
Oh, there you go.
So I'll put that on the playlist. Drive My Car. We talked about the guitar, and I found what's interesting with Drive My Car is that first line could be an opening to a Motown song. Wow-now-now-now-now. Yeah, exactly. But just the way it's phrased, the notes chosen... And then when it all comes in, asking girl where she wants me to be, there's a Motown backbeat going on behind it.
So I'll dare to say their best vocal harmonies are in this album. I'll dare to say that.
I can't think of anything better.
Because
anything that came previously was your standard harmonies at that time, but this kind of pushed it. What goes on is incredible harmony-wise. We already mentioned it. There's just so many layers.
Looking Through You is great. Wait, what a song!
Yeah, it's really.
Shall we do the segment?
Which one?
Well,
you introduce it.
Top 3 or something. Is that
oh, wicked! Yeah. So
you told me there's a segment.
I didn't know which one you meant. Here we go for Laz and Felipe's top 3. So we are going to go through our top 3 songs of the album. As usual, we'll go 3, 3, 2, 2, 1, 1. So Felipe, tell us your third favourite song from the album.
Right, third. Tough shit. I'm going to go for Norwegian Wood.
Oh, wonderful, yeah.
Yeah, because I can picture that scene. I can imagine myself. And it actually reminded me of a time I was at a friend's house, and it was like, we were 3 friends at this place, and the girl who owned the place was like, "Oh, it's a bit too late for you guys to go home. You can sleep here, but there's no chair, there's no bed if you want to sleep on the floor or whatever." And next morning, we were listening to the Beatles, the 3 of us, we were bandmates, and we're like, "This is so cool, that song." It feels like, the conversation we were having last night. So that song for me, is like a real life situation. It's so...
real, close to home.
So real, close to home. So I love that song.
My third favourite one is What Goes On, because I think, for me, the vocal harmonies make it. It's just absolutely stunning. And the lyrics I love as well. I think they're really funny.
Yeah.
And it's Ringo, Ringo doesn't get a lot of credit because he's not a primary songwriter. I suppose his talent on the drums isn't as obvious as Harrison's talent on the guitar.
Yeah.
So I don't feel he's often given the credit he deserves. So for this to be his first songwriting credit and for him to sing on it, I love it. It's just a feel-good song to me.
What about your give Ringo some, isn't it?
Give Ringo some love, yeah. What about your second favourite song?
Second favourite song, Nowhere Man.
Okay.
Mainly because of the movie Yellow Submarine.
Okay.
If you haven't watched it,
you
should. Nowhere Man's a character that turns up at some point. He is apparently the only one who is able to fix the submarine so they can carry on with their journey.
Amazing.
But he's too busy writing a book and doing some painting and talking about philosophy. He's doing too many things at the same time and he's not going anywhere.
Brilliant.
So and it makes you think, isn't he a bit like you and me?
Yeah. Well, John wrote that song about him, didn't he? Yeah,
exactly. So after I watched that, I kind of fell in love with the character.
Yeah.
What a character, the Nowhere Man.
That's great.
The Nowhere Man is, all of us, really.
My second favourite song is Norwegian Wood, and for the same... Well, not for the same reason. I wasn't with you that morning. But there's something so different about it. Just that melody that goes on. Down, 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 just keeps repeating.
It's like a waltz.
Then there's the middle 8. There it's in 12/8, yeah. Then there's the middle 8, which she asked me to... But just how it all resolves beautifully back to that... And when I awoke...
Yeah. It's almost like a folk song. Somehow.
It is, yeah. It is. No, I agree with that. Your first favourite song?
Wait.
Oh, yeah. It's lovely.
Because
it's such a feel-good song, isn't it?
It's less experimental than the rest of the album, but it's so strong. And and again, there were, let's talk about the classic boy loves the girl kind of stuff. But it's like, wait until I come back to your side, we'll forget the tears we cried. That's so strong, the way he puts it, and it's just that it feels almost desperate.
Yeah,
and I like the feeling. I'm not able to say why technically I like the song. It's not about that. It's about the feeling, and that is when you wish you could just go home as quickly as possible to see the person you love. And that's so good and so well expressed with the words and the instrument and everything else, that when the feeling of a song is just so much stronger than any other elements in the song, that means every element in the song is doing its job perfectly.
Yeah, wonderful.
That's it.
My favourite song is Nowhere Man as well. I love it. What we'll do actually is we'll just do a combined top 5, because we've done 5 together, haven't we? So
okay, that's a top 5.
The same reason. I love. I don't know. There's elements in each of the songs which you could say, okay, this is the Beatles trying something new. With Nowhere Man, it doesn't feel like anything new has been tried. It just feels like the next step in their progression of becoming a better band.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Excellent. So that's the end of that segment. What I want to do now is I want to talk for a while about the lyrics, because like I said, I've done a lot of research in this and I've done a lot of reading into it. So I am going to go through each track and just very quickly talk about the lyrics, because, well, not each track, but most of them, because there is a very distinctive theme that comes in here. So bear with me in this and you'll see where we get at the end of this. Drive my car. A chauffeur asks a woman what she wants to be, suggesting an offer of career advancement for sexual favours. The woman says she wants to be a movie star, and then because of her persona and her power, the roles are reversed. The guy starts saying, "My prospects are good. Let me drive you around. Or you can drive my car."
Interesting.
Norwegian Wood. The woman is in control again. An extramarital affair, a failed meeting between Lennon and a mysterious girl where she goes to bed and he sleeps in the bath. Rejecting his advances, he burns down the house. You Won't See Me. McCartney's difficulties with relationship with actress Jane Asher. She wouldn't put her acting career second to his needs.
Interesting.
Nowhere Man. Different kinds of lyrics, but this is about Lennon's self-loathing, and he had an existential concerns raised by taking LSD, but that doesn't go to my point. Think for yourself. Harrison is criticising people for not seeing what's in front of them. People think it's about a lover, but George said it's about the government.
Oh, right. And he was...
Yeah, he was very political, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The word is about the universal concept of love as a path to spiritual enlightenment through the LSD. Not really appropriate to my thing. The lyrics of Michelle. The French language barrier between this man and his French lover is just that. It's a barrier. Their relationship is doomed from the start.
But then he's speaking French in
he's
order
trying
to connect to her.
Yeah,
not the
but
other
it's
way
not
around.
working very well.
She's not speaking English, he's speaking French.
Exactly. He's trying to go to the woman.
Yeah.
What Goes On was written in the 50s by Lennon. Girl. The girl from his dreams who would meet his demand. This is John singing about the girl he wants, a girl from his dreams that would meet his demands intellectually. But actually, she met his demands intellectually, but she wasn't very nice or supportive. She was heartless, conceited, and she humiliated him. I'm looking through you. Paul's girlfriend, Jane Asher, the actress, she moved to Bristol for acting work. Having had many girlfriends, Paul was not used to playing second fiddle, and he said, "I knew I was selfish and it had caused a few rows. Jane went off and I said, okay then, leave. I'll find someone else. It was shattering to be without her. That's when I wrote, I'm looking through you." In my life, we've spoken about Wait, about a couple who broke up and are now back together again and things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
One positive romantic song. Get the theme. Check out the theme I'm going for here. The one positive song romantically. If I Needed Someone. Harrison wrote this for Pattie Boyd, his model girlfriend at the time.
Yeah.
But this song is Harrison addressing all the women in the world that fancy him and that he fancies. But he's saying, it might have worked out between us, but my love for Pattie is too much. And the lyric at the end of the song, but leave me your number just in case. Did you hear that? Yeah, you get it.
Interesting.
Run for Your Life. Now, this is an interesting song. I'll give you a quick rundown. In 1951, the lyrics, I'd rather see you dead, little girl, than in the hands of another man, came from 1951, I Want to Play House with You by Eddie Arnold. In 1954, Arthur Gunter took the same lyrics and made his own song. In 1955, Elvis did Baby Let's Play House with the same opening lyrics. And in 1965, the Beatles did Run for Your Life. Now, the original songs of all of those that I mentioned is about a song of devotion and how upset a man would be if his girlfriend didn't move in with him. But the Beatles version is so much more threatening. It's almost a revenge fantasy, isn't it? It's dark, it's scary.
So I'm going to kill you. It's pretty much like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you for going with me through all those songs and lyrics. The one thing I wanted to say that I felt really important is that in the previous... It's the sixth album? Beatles' sixth album, yeah it is. In the previous 5 albums, we have heard song after song from the Beatles of boy meets girl, boy falls in love with girl, everything is fine. The first album that the Beatles have no commitments, no restraints, no this, no that, no the other.
You can actually say what you think.
They've delved into themselves.
Paul has written really interesting point.
Thank you. Paul has written 2 songs about how he wasn't happy with how his relationship with Jane. John writing a song about the kind of woman he wants, but she's not good enough, and the kind of woman he wants, but who's rejecting his advances. George Harrison writing to all the women in the world, saying, "Listen, I'm really in love with Pattie, so it's not going to work. But should things not work out, leave me your number."
Yeah.
This is my comment on the lyrics. I wrote this to say at the end of the episode, but it makes sense to say now. Lyrically, Other commitments ate into their time to record previous albums this personal. Happy boy meets girl love songs could be written quickly, under pressure, and churned out fast. We know this with the Beatles, and we know this with the song Wait, because that was the last song they recorded of the album, like Paranoid a few weeks ago. They had to do it to meet the demands. But Rubber Soul was the first time the band had no other commitments and could work hard and long on songs and lyrics. What we have as a result of that is the Beatles' first lyrics that are truly a reflection on themselves and their personal thoughts, feelings about experiences of love.
That is a strong statement, but I believe it's very, very straight to the point, and it is what it is. It is what the album's all about. So it's the Beatles being themselves, probably for the first time.
Yeah.
And they show the dark side of relationships, right?
Exactly.
And
in every song,
nearly.
It's
more, again, they were famous for singing about love, but it was one kind of love. I saw her standing there, what a beautiful song. But, this boy falling in love with a girl who's beautiful, young and attractive, and he sees her dancing, he wants to dance with her, and he dances with her. That's it, dream coming true. Most of their songs were a bit like that. Help, maybe not. It's like, I didn't achieve what I wanted, I'm struggling, whatever. But at this point, it's more like, okay, we tried something together, didn't quite work out. Oh, I'm a Beatle, I can have every woman I want. Oh, not really. That, Norwegian Wood, she didn't want me.
But do you think,
I think there's a dark side of it. It's like, not everything is going to be just fine in terms of relationships. I think there's a lot of that.
Yeah, I completely agree. Do you agree with what I'm saying, that the fact that they had time on their hands to think about lyrics let them dig into themselves?
Exactly. Just go in the depths of your soul and find all the good and bad feelings you have about people and women specifically. There's one interesting thing, though. You think about Run For Your Life. So the feeling that you want to kill someone, that's really dark. It's really bad. But shall we just do this sort of censorship where we don't talk about those things?
Never.
Because in music, I believe there's a character, right? And I believe most humans have those dark feelings inside them.
Yeah.
What makes us different from each other is the fact that you can think and control those things, and you can be a good person if you want to.
Yeah.
Or you can just become a monster because you can't control yourself.
Yeah.
So you have choices. So in that song, he's reflecting the desire of killing someone just because she doesn't want to be with you, which is like the worst thing I can ever think of. But some people are like that. Those characters, they exist. Some of them would even act that way and actually do it. So imagine a band that's famous for love songs talking about a love that might lead to death. That is like really dark. It could be a great movie, though.
Yeah.
Again, would you turn that into a song? Most people wouldn't. The Beatles did. It's interesting, though. It's really dark. But again, Wait it's so grown up, isn't it? Wait is like, yeah, we were together. It didn't work out, but we know we don't have anyone better to share our lives with. Let's get back together. Let's forget about the past.
You're right.
That's so grown up. That's a grown up
as well, isn't it?
But that's a grown up talking to a grown up. Like, let's get our shit together. In it. So I see it. Yeah,
that's wicked, man. Brilliant. Is there anything else you wanted to say about the album before we finish?
No, I just want to say I want to listen to it again.
Yeah.
Because after we talk about, and you gave me a complete different insight into what the album
I
is.
had a completely different insight. I didn't go into this thinking, right, I'm going to talk about, when I did my notes, I didn't say, right, I'm going to talk about the lyrics. It's only when doing my research, and I got a fantastic book at home called The Book of Beatles Songs, and it has a page per song, and it has all the lyrics and tells you how the song was written, why it was written. So I went straight there for some of this information, and it just helped me see this album as a complete picture, which is what they wanted, isn't it?
Yes. Brilliant.
Whole back to the start.
It's like just one thing though, because you said that, I think what makes rock music special for me is that fact that you have depth and meaning to stuff. If you want to, if you just entertain people, then you go for it.
Yeah.
But sometimes in, especially modern pop music, or I feel like there's a lot of music produced out there, and I don't want to criticize anyone specifically. I'm just going to say generic comment about it. It's like you have disposable music about generic feelings, and they don't go in depth into anything. And you listen to it, okay, cool. Oh, I can relate to this. I'm a teenager. Oh, nice, cool. And that's it. Nothing more. There's no layers. And I think this album, as you said, proved to be multi-layered all the way through. In terms of feelings, technical abilities as musicians, creativity, everything.
Yeah, excellent.
Masterpiece.
We're going to finish off with a quiz, quick segment, a quick quiz. So here is the quiz for Felipe.
Shit.
Here we go. Question 1. Rubber Soul is the Beatles' second album to have only original material. What is the other one?
Help?
No.
Really? What's the other one?
Hard Day's Night.
Oh, yeah.
Question 2. Oh, no, I did this one. It's about Elvis and the song.
Okay.
I was meant to do this earlier. Question 2. Rubber Soul was the third highest selling album of 1965 and the third highest selling of 1966. The first highest selling of 1965 was Beatles for Sale, and the first highest selling of 66 was Revolver. What film soundtrack was the second highest selling album of 65 and 66?
Oh, I don't know.
So 65 was Rubber Soul, This Thing I'm Asking For, and Beatles for Sale. 66 was Rubber Soul, This Film Soundtrack, and Revolver.
God, if I guess...
It's one of my top 10 favourite movies of all time.
If I say, because I have no idea when the movie was released, and I might
Why don't you have a go?
guessing something really stupid. No,
Have a go.
not going to have a go.
Go on, no, it's a quiz, you've got to guess.
60s. I'm going to Google this. Not going to Google the question. I'm going to Google the movie. I don't want to embarrass myself. Oh, no.
Which movie?
Which year? Which year are you talking about?
65 and 66.
No, I got it wrong. No,
Okay.
I thought it was The Godfather, but that's like 7 years
musical.
after that. Oh,
Did I say musical?
No, I thought
I said
movie.
film soundtrack.
Film soundtrack.
Which actually is the truth. But anyway, it is The Sound of Music.
The Sound of Music.
Yeah. So
I
2
wouldn't
years,
guess.
65 and 66.
I got it wrong. I thought The Godfather, but no, it says 72. No.
Question
It's like 5
3.
years after that.
What's peculiar about the front cover of Rubber Soul compared to their previous albums?
They're not wearing suits.
No, yeah, good one, but I don't think that's it.
They have long hair.
No.
Don't know.
It doesn't have the word Beatle in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just does it say Rubber Soul? I don't remember.
It says Rubber Soul in the top corner,
So
but
the
it doesn't have
wow.
Beatle or anything in it, which is
Jeez.
brilliant.
Man, I'm getting everything. You're getting really good at the quizzes because you're asking some.
But if you
obscure
don't know,
things.
then I'm hoping the listeners don't know.
Yeah.
So it's like everyone gets to learn something. Excellent. Let's end here. We could go on and on and on, but I think we've covered everything. We've talked musically about the variety of genres. We've talked about the simple negativity of the lyrics, the overarching negativity of all the lyrics.
I think all the albums we talk about, it's like endless subjects, and
Yeah.
you can keep talking about them forever.
Yeah.
And it's like it's a shame that we have to end the show. at some point.
Exactly. I'm going to leave you with something I've written that sums up my final thoughts on it. Then you tell us any final thoughts you have, and then we'll say goodbye. Up to this point, pop music was quite limited in a number of ways. Instrumentation, chord progression, lyrical content, production techniques. But Rubber Soul blew each of these categories wide open. It was dark, disturbing lyrics about the negative aspects of love, instruments that you'd never have expected to hear in the 60s, chord progressions that deviate so far from what was normal, because in this album the Beatles used a lot of modes and a lot of different scales to write their songs around. Production techniques that further enhanced and emphasised the music and lyrics. You know, we spoke about the fuzzy bass that made that song sound more aggressive in the fourth song. Rock and roll is musical freedom, and with this album the Beatles proved to us that pop music can be about anything and sound however you want it to sound.
Brilliant.
It just blew pop music wide open, and because of that it is a damn good rock and roll album.
It's That was like a really good statement.
Thank you. I
can't top that. I just want to say that
it's a good album.
It's a good album. You should listen to it. I just want to say that one thing that makes the album good for me is the fact that is a lot of thought behind the creation of the album. It's not about, oh, let's just jam together, come up with some beautiful love songs and record them. There is a lot of thought, a lot of craft, and it is intentionally clever.
A lot of thought and craft, as we've said 3 or 4 times, for the album as a whole.
As a whole.
Which we've already mentioned, yeah. Fantastic, guys.
Well done, the Beatles.
Well done. Yeah, good job. You've done it again. It's another good album. I will leave you with this quote from Gene Sculati, music journalist. Rubber Soul was the definitive rock as art album, revolutionary in that it was a completely successful creative endeavour, integrating with precision all aspects of the creative process. Composition of individual tracks done with extreme care, each track arranged appropriately to fit beside each other track. The complete symmetrical rock and roll album. And with that, guys, we will say goodbye and thank you for joining us for another episode. Go and listen to the album. As usual, the playlist will be at the bottom of the show notes.
You can find us on the internet.
There you go. That's good.
We're there.
Screw this Instagram. Find us on the internet.
Instagram, Spotify, internet. If we have that thing called the internet, we're there.
Perfect.
Just Google us.
Google us.
Find us. Whatever. We are on the internet, and thanks for being with us again. And if you have any thoughts about the show, any reviews, we want to hear all the good stuff. Leave the bad reviews for yourself. No, joking. Tell us whatever you think about the show, how we can improve, what you like and what you don't like about it. Thanks for being with us again. And keep on rocking, everyone.
Yeah, to echo Felipe's sentiments, it's been a pleasure, and it's still a pleasure doing this podcast and receiving all the very positive feedback that we get. So thank you very much, and as usual, long live rock and roll.